Okay, good morning, everyone. Yesterday we have discussed about introduction to GST, how the GST came in India, how it was introduced, who took the initiative to introduce GST law in India, and how the GST law is different from old indirect tax. What are the disadvantages that GST took as an advantage to initiate in India that we have discussed. Today we are going to discuss what are the benefits. That means what are the advantages of introducing GST in India that we are going to discuss. That is the framework of GST as introduced in India. That is, the GST is known as dual GST model. The GST law in India is known as dual GST model. Why means at the same time as both the center and the state. That means the center and the state both can levy tax at the single point of time. That is in case of intra-state supply. Uh, uh, there will be charging CGST and SGST simultaneously, as the CGST is the share of the central government and SGST is the share of the state government, as both the state government and the central government can levy tax at that single point of time. Hence, it is known as the dual GST model, as you can look into here. In view of the federal structure of the country, consequently, the center and the state simultaneously levy GST on taxable supply of goods and services or both takes place within a state or union territory. Within a state or union territory, if a supply takes place within a state or union territory, then it is obviously called as an intrastate supply. And in case of an intrastate supply, both CGST and SGST or UTGST can be levied for such supply, as both center and state can levy tax. So it is known as a dual GST model. This is the CGST, SGST, UTGST or IGST. Yesterday we have discussed when the CGST, SGST or UTGST will be levied and when the IGST will be levied. Legislative framework means when what are the states where CGST, SGST will be levied, what are the states where UTGST will be levied, that will be discussed here. You can go through this legislative framework, not so important or not so relevant. We don't have relevance. Uh, Now comes to classification of goods and services. In GST, the classification is based on a nomenclature. That is, for the goods, the goods are classified under HSN, and where the services are classified under SAC. That is, HSN is the harmonized system of nomenclature where goods are classified and services are classified in SAC, that is service account code. Now comes to composition scheme. Composition scheme is one type of benefit that provided for the small taxpayers. Small taxpayers in the sense we have in terms of turnover. In terms of turnover, will classify as a small scale service, small scale business provider. This composition scheme is applicable. Initially, it is applicable only for the goods, and after introduction of GST, some service providers also seeks these benefits. So they applied for the council for seeking of these benefit for step into the composition scheme. And now for service providers also the composition scheme is available. Normally, the composition scheme for goods having turnover less than 1.5 crore turnover, or for some special category states, the turnover classification which got less than 75 lakhs turnover. For that, this benefit is available. In detail, we will in upcoming chapters we can learn in detail about this composition scheme. Till now you can remember that composition scheme is one type of benefit provider for the small business providers, small service providers. uh, as all applicable laws and regulations in GST is will not be there. They cannot they need not comply with all laws and regulations in the GST. There are some relaxations as for as for small sector. All these laws and regulations, if they are complied, there will be burden to them. So for them some benefit is provided in the form of composition scheme. When comes to registration, for registration, in terms of turnover, if a turnover crosses certain threshold limit, you need to register under GST. But there are instances where a compulsory registration is applicable irrespective of the turnover, that we will discuss in detail in the upcoming chapters. But up to now you remember that a person is liable to register. A person is liable to register if his turnover crosses certain threshold limit, then the person is liable to register. For that registration process, that the person liable to register is divided under three categories. One is the special category states. For them, the turnover limit is 10 lakhs. Uh, and for some category of states, the turnover limit is 20 lakhs. And for some category of states, the turnover limit is 40 lakhs. When it is the 10 lakhs threshold limit is applicable for the supplier involved in goods and services. Here, if you see, 10 lakhs threshold limit is applicable for supplier of goods as well as supplier of services. Supplier of goods as well as supplier of services. This 10 lakh threshold limit is applicable. That means for this category of states, for this four category of states, if their turnover crosses 10 lakhs, that means they need to compulsory register under GST. When if the turnover crosses 10 lakhs, then they are compulsorily liable to register. You can remember that it as MMTN. A shortcut is MMTN, like you have MMTS services in Hyderabad, like that you can remember it as MMTN. That is Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. MMTS services are there in Hyderabad. So, so that you can remember as like this as MMTN. MMTN. Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. MMTN, don't mix Meghalaya in MMTN. It is Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. Now, states where threshold limit of 20 lakhs. These 20 lakhs limit is also applicable for the supplier involved in goods, supplier involved in services, supplier involved in goods, supplier involved in services. Use your terminology is important. Supplier involved in goods and supplier involved in services. If they fall under these category of states, then 20 lakhs limit is applicable. That means if that person, that supplier or the taxpayer crosses 20 lakhs turnover, then they are compulsory liable to register. That is Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Pondicherry, and Telangana. Pondicherry is the union territory. This is the shortcut, you can remember it as. Use Okay, you can remember. Okay, I will let you know tomorrow. The shortcut I will exactly mm, make it and I will provide to you tomorrow. Uh, these are the category of states that you can remember for which 20 lakhs turnover. If they crosses 20 lakhs turnover, then they are liable to register. And you should concentrate here. States with threshold limit of 20 lakhs for supplier of services or goods or both. Supply of services 20 lakhs turnover limit only. If supplier of services and goods, then it is 20 lakhs turnover only. Only the person who is involved exclusively in supply of goods, only exclusively in supply of goods, that is a condition number one, and should not fall under these two categories. That means it should not be MMTN and it should not be these category of states. Then only the 40 lakhs threshold limit is applicable to them. Understood? Supplier exclusively involved in supply of goods. Condition number one, only goods, and does not fall under these two categories. That means it should not, that state should not fall under MMTN and these 6 states. Then only the 40 lakhs threshold limit is applicable. If the person if the person provides services as well as if he supply goods both, then the 40 lakhs threshold limit is not applicable. Only 20 lakhs threshold limit is applicable. Why he mentioned intrastate here means, the relevance here means that you will let you know in the upcoming chapters, but I will explain you, as there are some circumstances where a person is compulsorily liable to register. I told you before, irrespective of the turnover, there where a person makes interstate supplies. Interstate supplies means one state to other state. If a supply takes place there, that supplier needs to take registration irrespective of its turnover. It means if he is making a supply of rupees 1,000 also, he need to compulsory liable to register under GST irrespective of its turnover. So that's why here only intrastate is mentioned, as if it is an interstate supply, irrespective of the turnover, they are compulsorily liable to register. So there is no relevance of uh, looking into this 10 lakh threshold limit, 20 lakh threshold limit, 40 lakh threshold limit here. As in case of an interstate person making interstate supply are compulsorily liable to register means there is that the turnover threshold limit does not play any relevance there. So they mentioned here interstate supply specifically, intrastate supply specifically. That is the relevance here. Exemptions means irrespective of that 10 lakh threshold limit, 20 lakh threshold limit, or 40 lakh threshold limit, uh, there are some goods or services supplied will come under some exempted category. That means some basic goods or some emergency goods or services like medical facility or some services provided by the government. Uh, Such type of services or supply of goods are comes under exemption category, that we will discuss in detail in next chapters. And the seamless flow of credit that I explained yesterday, how the input tax credit mechanism is there, how it's credit, how it will be um, how it will be flown from the supplier to the supplier, how the supplier will get credit, that when a person is liable to take input tax credit, that we have discussed yesterday, and in detail we will discuss in the input tax credit chapter also. And this order of utilization of credit, what is this order of utilization of credit means? If a person, let's take example, person A is there, person B is there, he belongs to Karnataka and he belongs to Telangana. Okay, and person C is there, he belongs to Telangana. Now, A is supplying to B. A is supplying to B means here the supply involves movement of goods from one state to other, right? Supply involves movement of goods from one state to other. Let us take an example. There is a movement from one state to other, and the registered place of business of B is Telangana, and the registered place of business of A is Karnataka. Two different states, place of supply fall under Telangana. Place of supply also takes happening between two different states. Place of supply is Telangana. And location of the supplier is in Karnataka. Location of the supplier, he is the supplier, he is the recipient. Location of the supplier is in Karnataka. Place of supply takes taken place in Telangana. So it is known as interstate supply. It is known as interstate supply. IGST will come into picture. Now, if A supplies to B, then A will collect IGST from B. Understood. A will collect IGST from B. Let's take it as 100 rupees. This is the IGST component. Now, B is supplying to C. B is supplying to B is supplying to C. Let's take he collected. That means B collected from C a tax component of 50 rupees CGST, 50 rupees SGST. Now, let us think A is manufacturer and the end supplier of goods. Now, for discharging A's liability, he need to discharge what? 100 rupees IGST, right? 100 rupees IGST. Okay. What is that order of utilization? You see, A is supplying to B. A will collect IGST from B. 100 rupees he have collected. What we will do? A will file GSTR1. A will file GSTR3B. He will pay his 100 rupees liability to the government. After filing GSTR1, obviously, B will get credit, input tax credit of this 100 rupees. Okay. Now, this 100 rupees will get credited to B's input tax credit ledger. Clear up to here? 100 rupees amount of 100 rupees will be credited to B's input tax credit ledger in IGST header. Now, what B is doing, B is selling some products to C, B is selling some products to D. Three are in same states. Let us assume that C and D are also registered persons. So C and D are registered persons. Location of the supplier is in Telangana and place of supply is determined as C and D are registered in same state. So let us take place of supply is Telangana. Place of supply is also Telangana. C and D are registered persons and located in the same state. So place of supply also taken place in Telangana only. So CGST, SGST is involved. What is this order of utilization means? When B purchased from A, B got 100 rupees credit in IGST ledger. Now B sold to C, B sold to D. Now how much amount B should discharge? 100 rupees of CGST, 100 rupees of SGST. Now, what is the order of utilization means? While utilizing these 100 rupees ledger, 100 rupees IGST, the order of utilization means first B can utilize IGST amount of 100 rupees. Okay. What is the order of utilization means? First, the entire IGST should get consumed. Okay. First, the entire IGST should get. Okay. One more thing you do here for clear understanding. Let's take A1 also. He is also in Telangana. Okay. 50, 50. Now, B is purchasing from A, B is purchasing from A1. Okay, from both he are purchasing. One is the interstate supply, another is the intrastate supply. So in input tax credit ledger, he has 100 rupees, 100 rupees IGST, 50 rupees CGST, 50 rupees HGST. ఇక్కడ ఏమైతుంది అంటే ఇప్పుడు బి 100 రూపీస్ సిజిఎస్టీ 100 రూపీస్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీ హీ నీడ్ టు పే అంతే కదా. ఇప్పుడు బి సప్లైయింగ్ టు సి, బి సప్లైయింగ్ టు డి. సో 100 rupees CGST, 100 rupees SGST, he need to discharge. What happened means this is his credit ledger. Whose B's credit ledger? 100 rupees in IGST, CGST 50, SGST 50. Now he need to discharge 100 rupees SGST, 100 rupees CGST. What is the order of utilization means? First the entire IGST will be consumed. That means for discharging these 100 rupees, order of utilization. ఎట్లా డిశ్చార్జ్ చేయొచ్చు అంటే ఈ 100 రూపీస్ మొత్తం 100 రూపీస్ సిజిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. ఓకే, మొత్తం 100 రూపీస్ సిజిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. ఇప్పుడు మొత్తం 100 రూపీస్ సిజిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకుంటే ఏమవుతుంది అని అంటే ఎస్జిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ ఎంత ఉంటుంది మనకి 50 రూపీస్ ఉంటుంది. ఇప్పుడు 100 రూపీస్ ఐజిఎస్టీ సిజిఎస్టీ 50-50 ఉంది కదా. ఇప్పుడు మనం ఎంత డిశ్చార్జ్ చేయాలి? 100 సిజిఎస్టీ డిశ్చార్జ్ చేయాలి, 100 ఎస్జిఎస్టీ డిశ్చార్జ్ చేయాలి. మనకు ఐజిఎస్టీలో ఎంత ఉన్నది? 100 రూపీస్ ఉంది. ఆర్డర్ ఆఫ్ యూటిలైజేషన్ ఎట్లుంటుంది అని అంటే ఇప్పుడు 100 రూపీస్ ఫస్ట్ ఐజిఎస్టీ మొత్తం కన్జ్యూమ్ కావాలి. ఐజిఎస్టీ కన్జ్యూమ్ అయినాకనే సిజిఎస్టీ ఎస్జిఎస్టీ యూజ్ చేసుకోవడానికి ఉంటుంది. కాబట్టి మొత్తం ఫస్ట్ 100 రూపీస్ ఇక్కడ యూటిలైజ్ చేసుకుంటే నీకు ఎస్జిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ ఎంత ఉన్నది? 50 రూపీస్ ఉన్నది. కానీ నీకు లయబిలిటీ ఎంత ఉన్నది? 100 రూపీస్ ఉన్నది. ఇప్పుడు నీకేమవుతుంది? 50 రూపీస్ పేమెంట్ వస్తుంది. అంటే నువ్వు క్యాష్ లెడ్జర్ తోటి డిశ్చార్జ్ చేయాలి. దీన్ని ఇంకొక ఆర్డర్లు ఎట్లా పెట్టుకోవచ్చు అని అంటే 50 రూపీస్ సిజిఎస్టీ అంటే ఈ సిజిఎస్టీ డిశ్చార్జ్ చేయడానికి 50 రూపీస్ ఐజిఎస్టీ యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. 50 రూపీస్ ఐజిఎస్టీ యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. ఇక్కడ 50 రూపీస్ మళ్ళీ ఐజిఎస్టీ యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు ఎస్జిఎస్టీకి. 50 రూపీ ఇక్కడ 100 రూపీస్ 50 రూపీస్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోవాలి, 50 రూపీస్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోవాలి. ఇంకా 50 రూపీస్ వీళ్ళకి క్రెడిట్ ఉంటుంది. ఇప్పుడు మొత్తం మన లయబిలిటీ ఎంత? 100. మొత్తం మనం ఎంత డిశ్చార్జ్ చేసినాం త్రూ ఐటీసీ? 100. అప్పుడు నీకు క్యాష్ లెడ్జర్ తోటి కట్టాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. ఓకే, ఎందుకంటే ఈ 100 రూపీస్ మొత్తం డిశ్చార్జ్ చేసి ఇక్కడ ఏంటిదంటే వాట్ ఈస్ ద ఆర్డర్ ఆఫ్ యూటిలైజేషన్ విచ్ కెనాట్ బి అలౌడ్ ఏంటిదని అంటే ఇప్పుడు 100 రూపీస్ ఐజిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ ఉన్నప్పుడు ఇక్కడ 50 రూపీస్ నువ్వు ఐజిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ యూజ్ చేసి 50 రూపీస్ ఐజిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ యూజ్ చేసి 50 రూపీస్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ యూజ్ చేస్తావు. ఇట్లా ఓకే, 50 రూపీస్ ఐజిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ యూజ్ చేస్తావు, 50 రూపీస్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీ క్రెడిట్ యూజ్ చేస్తావు. 100 రూపీస్ టోటల్ లయబిలిటీ, 100 రూపీస్ టోటల్ లయబిలిటీ. ఒకవేళ నీకు ఇక్కడ 100 రూపీస్ ఉన్నప్పుడు సఫిషియంట్ ఉన్నప్పుడు కాన్సెప్ట్ ఏంటిది అని అంటే ఐజిఎస్టీ అనేది ఫస్ట్ కన్జ్యూమ్ కావాలి. దాని తర్వాత సిజిఎస్టీ, దాని తర్వాత ఎస్జిఎస్టీ. ఐజిఎస్టీ పక్కన పెట్టి సిజిఎస్టీ ఫస్ట్ కన్జ్యూమ్ చేసుకుంటా అని అంటే దట్ ఈస్ నాట్ ది ఆర్డర్ ఆఫ్ యూటిలైజేషన్. ఫస్ట్ ఐజిఎస్టీ షుడ్ బి కన్జ్యూమ్డ్. ఓకే, ఐజిఎస్టీ పక్కన పెట్టి సిజిఎస్టీ మొత్తం యూజ్ చేసుకుంటానంటే కుదరదు. ఫస్ట్ ఐజిఎస్టీ షుడ్ బి కన్జ్యూమ్డ్ హియర్. ఆఫ్టర్వర్డ్స్ ఓన్లీ సిజిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ షుడ్ బి కన్జ్యూమ్డ్ అండ్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ షుడ్ బి కన్జ్యూమ్డ్. And IGST can be utilized for the payment of CGST, for the payment of SGST. Point number 1, first IGST should be consumed. Point number 1. Point number 2 ఏంటిదంటే IGST can be used for the payment of CGST, for the payment of SGST. And third point is CGST can be used for the payment of IGST, SGST can be used for the payment of IGST. This is point number 4. పాయింట్ నెంబర్ 5 ఏంటిదంటే సిజిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఉన్నప్పుడు సిజిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోరాదు. ఎస్జిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ సిజిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోరాదు. ఓకే. దట్ మీన్స్ ఇన్ సేమ్ స్టేట్‌లో సెంటర్ స్టేట్ షేర్ నీకు అపోర్షన్ చేసుకోరా. అంటే సిజిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఉన్నప్పుడు సిజిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఎస్జిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోరాదు. ఎస్జిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ సిజిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోరాదు. కాకపోతే ఐజిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ సిజిఎస్టీ ఎస్జిఎస్టీకి వస్తది. సిజిఎస్టీ ఎస్జిఎస్టీ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఐజిఎస్టీకి యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. అర్థమైందా? అఖిల
అర్థమైంది.
డౌట్ ఉందా ఏమన్నా?
లేదు.
ఓకే. Order of utilized. There is a specific order in which ITC should be utilized. First, IGST credit should be utilized towards IGST payment, and then towards CGST, and then towards SGST or UTGST. In our example, there is no IGST payment here. So first IGST should be consumed. That means before utilization of CGST or SGST or UTGST liability, first IGST ledger should become zero. Then after only you can use the corresponding ledger balances. After entire ITC of IGST utilized, ITC of CGST should be utilized for the payment of CGST and IGST in that order. That is, IGST can be used for CGST. CGST can be used for IGST. Okay. CGST will be utilized for the payment of CGST and IGST in that order. Thereafter, ITC of SGST or UTGST should be utilized for the payment of SGST or UTGST and IGST. That means IGST can be used for SGST or UTGST. SGST or UTGST can be used for discharge of IGST, but not SGST or UTGST can be utilized for CGST. SGST, UTGST cannot be used for discharging liability of CGST, but it can be used for IGST. It may be noted that ITC of CGST cannot be utilized for the payment of SGST or UTGST and vice versa. States law రాదు. Also, ITC of SGST should be utilized for the payment of IGST only after ITC of CGST has been utilized fully. That means when you are using now you have entirely IGST liability. For discharging this IGST liability, first CGST liability should be elapsed completely. Then after only you can use SGST credit for the payment of IGST. If you have IGST liability of 100, you have SGST balance, CGST. ఇది 200 ఉందనుకోండి, ఇది 100 ఉందనుకోండి, రెండు డిఫరెంట్ ఉంటాయా అని అంటే ఉంటాయి. దెర్ ఆర్ సమ్ సర్కమ్స్టాన్సెస్. ఇప్పుడు ఎట్లా అని అంటే ఇప్పుడు ఐజిఎస్టీ లైబిలిటీకి ఫస్ట్ సిజిఎస్టీ షుడ్ బి కన్జ్యూమ్డ్. సో ఫర్ డిశ్చార్జ్ ఆఫ్ ఐజిఎస్టీ లైబిలిటీ, దిస్ ఈస్ ది క్రెడిట్, దట్ మీన్స్ క్రెడిట్ లెడ్జర్. This is the IGST liability. For discharging this IGST liability, first CGST credit will be consumed. That means for the entire IGST component, only CGST is consumed. Okay. Now the net balance will be SGST 100, CGST 100 in credit ledger. Okay. This is now this is one illustration. In case of intrastate supply, that means both CGST and SGST can be levied here. You can go through that. This is the value added tax which we have which I have explained yesterday. On only on GST will be levied only on value addition. Hence it is called value added tax. This is how the liability will be discharged. Here I took an example. This is one. When A supplies to A1 what A1 when A supplies to B how the tax liability discharge mechanism is there. That is his example. You can look after that. And if you have any doubts, let me know in the next session. This is in case of an interstate supply, which involve one intrastate. Supply of goods are by X of state one. Here, same state is involved. So we got CGST, SGST. If here different state is involved, here we got IGST. How CGST, SGST can be used for the discharge of IGST liability here? As you can see, the IGST liability is 2160 here, and you have CGST SD credit of 900. For this, first the CGST credit will be utilized. After that, the SGST credit will be utilized. So 900, entire 1800 will be discharged. So 2160 minus 1800, uh, mm, you have 360 remaining. 360 remaining. That 360 you need to pay through cash. This 360 you need to discharge through cash ledger. Okay. How much the net liability you are getting, the net cash to the government for that one here they are computing. You can look after that, and if you have any doubts, you can let me know in the next session. GST common portal. GST common portal is nothing but where we can file our returns, where we can check our input credit ledger, where you can find GSTR1, GSTR2A, GSTR3B, where we can register. As I told that I need to compulsorily register if I cross a certain threshold limit. Where I can register. That is the one service, uh, one portal, that is the GST common portal. That is the www.gst.gov.in. You will when you log in, you will be displayed like this, the common portal. E-way bill, when we need to generate e-way bill, that we will discuss in the upcoming chapters. This is e-invoicing. As there is 5 crore turnover limit, if the person crosses 5 crore turnover limit in the previous financial year, here that is 50 crore, but it is 5 crore for the financial year 21-22 from November. If the person crosses threshold limit of 5 crore turnover in the previous financial year, then he need to compulsorily issue e-invoicing. That means from the portal itself, the invoice will be generated simultaneously with the QR code. There are some requirements of e-invoicing that we will discuss in the upcoming chapters. The GST Suvidha providers. These are the provide these like helpless and how these are the service providers who are making the GST common portal to run in a, they will monitor the GST common portal and the compliance activities, as if your input credit ledger does not matches with GST or 2A or 2B, now a system generated notice will be getting. The backend work will be done by the GST Suvidha service providers. Compensation says, as I discussed yesterday, as at the introduction of GST, by introducing GST in India, there are some states which lose their revenue due to this introducing GST in India. So the central government agreed to compensate them for certain years. That is, they mentioned 5 years here, but after the 5 years, also they extended for 5 more years for compensation to states. That is, these compensations says. There are some goods on which GST they didn't bought under the purview of GST. That is alcoholic liquor for human consumption, petroleum, crude, diesel, ATF, and natural gas. And there are some real estate transactions on which the completion certificate is received. The sale has happened after the completion certificate. That is the real estate sector. And this tobacco and tobacco products also outside the purview of GST. and this opium, Indian hemp, and other narcotic drugs. What are those covered? All petroleum, crude, diesel, ATF, natural gas, tobacco and tobacco products, the real estate sector, opium, Indian hemp, and other narcotic drugs. These you need to remember these. That means GST will not be levied here. It is not under the purview of GST means there is excise duty for this. Excise duty is there and the local VAT is there. It is as these goods not come under GST means there is no tax like that. It is not there. They are now now even they are liable for excise duty and VAT, local state VAT. What are the taxes subsumed under GST? That means after introduction of GST, what are the taxes which we have eliminated? That you can see here. What are the central taxes and what are the state taxes? Central taxes, central excise duty, and additional excise duty. Additional excise duty is levied on some demerit good like that. This alcoholic liquor for human consumption, tobacco and tobacco products. For this, additional excise duty will be levied. And there are also some other products like luxury goods for that addiction, like Benz car like that, Audi. Additional excise duty will be levied. Now, this additional excise duty is eliminated not for the above five products, but for the products which come under GST or services products. Sorry, only product. That means only for on goods the excise duty is there. So only on goods on which the GST is component is levied. For that there is no these type of taxes. Service tax, that means the services excise duty under medicinal and toilet preparation CVD and special CVD. That means SAD. CVD means the countervailing duty. Special CVD means uh, the special CVD. CVD is nothing but to countervail excise duty. CVD is there, and to countervail VAT, special CVD is there. This is levied when goods imported from other country. Like means, let us take one example here. You will clearly understand what is this CVD and what is this SCAD. That means special CVD. Special CVD. Countervailing duty, special countervailing duty. As if you if you have manufactured a product, that means a good, your manufacturing cost comes to 100 rupees in India. Manufacturing cost comes to 100 rupees. Now you take it as in previous scenario. First thing, what is this CVD? What is this special CVD? That means in old indirect tax regime, one good, okay, goods. Now, if it is manufactured in India, you need to pay excise duty. Okay, let it's 10 rupees. You need to pay VAT. Now, this product for how much you are getting for 120 rupees. Now, now what the government think like, if you import these same good from other country, if you import the same good from other country, if their manufacturing cost is 100 rupees, you cannot get the same product for 100 rupees from the other country if their selling price is like. అట్లా ఏంటిదనంటే ఇప్పుడు నీకు ఇక్కడ కొంటే ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ వస్తుంది, వ్యాట్ వస్తుంది, టోటల్ 120 రూపీస్కి నీకు వస్తుంది. అదే బయట నీకు 100 రూపీస్కి వస్తున్నది అనుకుంటే నువ్వు ఏమని ఆలోచించుతావు? నేను బయట నుంచి ఇంపోర్ట్ చేసుకుంటావు అని ఆలోచిస్తావు. కాకపోతే గవర్నమెంట్ ఏంటిదంటే ఈ సేమ్ ప్రోడక్ట్ నువ్వు బయట నుంచి కొనుక్కుంటే గవర్నమెంట్కి 10 రూపీస్ ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ ఉన్న 10 రూపీస్ వ్యాట్ అనేది లూజ్ అవుతుంది. కాబట్టి when you import a certain product from the other country, if the import value, that means CIF, CF is nothing but cost, insurance, and freight. That means cost means these 100 rupees. If you let us take an example that CF value itself is the 100 rupees. That means the transportation cost, the shipping, insurance, all amounts to 100 rupees. Now what the government think అంటే ఈ 100 రూపాయలు అనేది ఈ గూడ్ అనేది ఒకవేళ ఇండియాలో మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చర్ చేస్తే దీనికి ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ ఎంత వస్తుంది? దట్ మీన్స్ టు countervail excise duty, government will levy CVD. To countervail VAT, government will levy SAD. That means special CVD. Now the cost implies same. That means నువ్వు ఏమైనా ప్రోడక్ట్ ఇంపోర్ట్ చేసుకున్నప్పుడు ఇండియాలో లెవీ చేసే ట్యాక్సెస్ బెనిఫిట్స్ లూజ్ అవుతుంది కాబట్టి నువ్వు అదే ప్రోడక్ట్ బయట నుంచి తెచ్చుకున్నప్పుడు అదే ప్రోడక్ట్కి ఎంత ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ ఉన్నదో అంత ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ సివిడి రూపంలో లెవీ చేస్తుంది. ఎంతైతే వ్యాట్ ఉన్నదో అంత ట్యాక్స్ స్పెషల్ సివిడి రూపంలో లెవీ చేస్తుంది. అదే సివిడి, స్పెషల్ సివిడి. ఓకే, దిస్ ఇస్ ద సివిడి అండ్ అర్థమైందా అట్లా?
అర్థమైంది.
Central sales tax is nothing but when in the VAT mechanism where you purchase the goods from the outside states, you will levy CST, that is central sales tax, and the central surcharges and cesses insofar as they relate to supply of goods and services. We have central surcharges like Krishi Kalyan cess, Swachh Bharat cess, like this it is there. For the services, that is 0.5%, 0.5%, that all these cesses. And the state taxes like state surcharges and so far as they relate to supply of goods. Entertainment tax, which levied on movie tickets, and tax on lottery betting and gambling. Special taxes will be levied on that by the certain states where the lottery betting and gambling is legalized. Entry tax, all forms, and purchase tax. Like that previously, if you import some goods from the other state, there is a 0.5% of purchase tax. That is this tax. And VAT or sales tax, luxury tax, and tax on advertisements. These are the state taxes. These are the central taxes which is subsumed under GST. Whether we need to remember all these means, yeah, you should remember because you will get an MCQ question from this. They will give an option like if you see the options, you look like all the taxes are subsumed under GST. So you need to look into these. These are the products which are outside the purview of GST. What are the benefits of GST? You can look into this. Why they introduced GST in India? Benefits to small traders, entrepreneurs. Constitutional provisions, Article 265 to 45. You can look into this. Justice and theory. All these all about the constitution theory part. So you can have these questions also. If you have any doubts, we will look in next session. Now the core GST, what is GST? We are going to enter. That is the supply under GST. The entire GST will be ruled by the single word, that is supply. Okay. Because when there is supply only, you can levy GST. If there is no supply, no GST. So the supply plays an important role. What is the supply? The definition of supply is very important. Now, to classify it as a supply, after it is classified as supply, we need to check whether it is a taxable supply or not. If it is a taxable supply, you will levy GST. If it is a non-taxable supply, that means non-GST supply, or it is an exempted supply, there will be no GST. That means first you need to classify as supply to levy GST. Uh, if it is classified as supply, then you need to check whether it is an GST supply or not. When it is a GST supply or non-GST supply or an exempted supply. How can we know whether it is an exempted supply, non-GST supply means? For non-GST, there are some exclusive list. That means if it is fall under certain category, it will be treated as non-GST supply. That is Schedule 3. And there are some exemption list. If a particular supply will fall under this exemption list, then it is treated as an exempted supply, and there will be no GST on that. So first we need to understand what is supply. For understanding what is supply, you classify supply into three parts. This is the supply. You classify that supply into three parts. That is supply means. Means it is a definition of the supply. Supply includes. That means it does not fall under the definition of supply, but it does not fall under means of supply. Means in general meaning it is not a supply, but it is treated as a supply. In general meaning, it is not a supply, but it is treated as a supply. That will be fall under includes category, and excludes. That means it in general, if you see, it is a supply, but for the GST purpose, it is not treated as supply. That is excludes. Supply here. Supply means, supply includes, supply excludes. Supply, it is the general meaning. There are some transactions. If you see in the general meaning, it is not a supply, but it is included. That is supply includes. If you see in general meaning, there are certain transactions, they are treated as supply. In general meaning, it is treated supply, but for the purpose of GST, it is not treated as supply. Here, for the in general meaning, it is not treated as supply, the transaction, but for the purpose of GST, it is treated as supply. That is includes category. In general meaning, it is not, it is treated as supply, but for the purpose of GST, it is excluded from the supply. That is the excludes. See, this is the concept of supply. Section 7 of the CGST Act 2017. That is GST Act is 2017, came in the year 2017, but is 101st Amendment Act 2016. From 101st Amendment Act 2016, CGST SGST Act is came. That is CGST Act 2017, SGST Act 2017, UTGST Act 2017, IGST Act 2017, but 101st Amendment Act 2016. You need to remember this, that 101st Amendment Act 2016 for the MCQ purpose. Now the concept of supply, I explained you, means, includes, excludes. Meaning of supply. Section 7 deals with meaning of supply. Okay, supply means. Supply means. Hmm. Supply means, supply includes all forms of all forms, supply includes all, includes, supply means, okay, all forms of goods of all forms of supply of goods or services or both, all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter system. In previously you have barter system, that is exchange of goods, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration. That means if there is consideration up to here, you understand like this. If there is consideration only, it will be treated as supply. Consideration is the main component here. By a person, by a person in the course or furtherance of business. In the course or furtherance of business. That means it should be for consideration and it should be made by the person and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. It should be in course or furtherance of business. What is this furtherance of business means? Uh, Extension of the business is is the furtherance of business. That means actually you are dealing in supply of some goods like this in DMart. You have DMart. DMart, what they will do, they will sell all the groceries. But for the selling of groceries, they need to construct a factory shed first. Factory shed. Factory shed. They should install all the equipment like plant and machinery. But what is their main business here? Selling of groceries. But what they are doing, they're installing plant and machinery. They are constructing the shed. That is beyond their business they are doing. That is the furtherance of business. Like me, if there will be a one point of time where a person at their shutdown point, they will dispose all their business assets. Business assets in the sense here, you take it as some business assets, business fixed assets. You treat as business fixed assets. They are selling this business. What are the normal course of business? There is something like trading in cement, but at the shutdown point, they will sell all their fixed assets. So beyond their normal course of business, they are extending their business. Extending means in the sense beyond their normal course, they are going some beyond that they are selling their fixed asset. That is the furtherance of business. Okay. Supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal, made or agreed to be made. Agreed to be made means that takes place in future for a consideration. Consideration is the main important thing by a person, and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. Next, importation of services. Here we talked about it should be for consideration, right? Now, see the second point. Import of services here. Import of services. Services means here services, not should be a taxable services only. Here services also. Import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. Okay, if it is in the course or furtherance of business also, you need to it is included in the supply and you need to discharge the GST under reverse charge mechanism as import of services as it is in the tax the service provider is in non-taxable territory, so the GST will and the service recipient is in taxable territory. So you need to discharge the tax under reverse charge mechanism that we'll look into in the upcoming chapters. I will as why the classification, what is the relevance of this import of services for the consideration whether or not in the course or furtherance of business means. Let us take one example. A, B. Now what happened previously means why they classified as only services, why not like B is hospital. Actually, normally previously hospital means doctor. As services, this hospitality sector, a major services are covered under exempted category. Exempted category. Now, what these doctors are doing, they are taking services from outside countries, and they are providing services in India. In India. So, what previously it should be it classified as only taxable service. At the introduction of GST, it is only taxable service. Now they removed taxable and they simply treated they simply took as service only. If there is service, then you need to pay GST. So what these hospitals are doing means they are importing services from the other countries, the best services they are taking from the other countries, and they are providing services to Indian people. So what the government think like, uh, as the major services provided by this hospital are a exempted category. So as services provided by a doctor, that is hospital, comes under exempted category, so they are importing services and the government is not getting revenue. So what they done means they remove this taxable term. That means if they import any service, this doctor need to pay GST under RCM. That is the import of service here. Import of services. Previously, it is import of taxable services. Why they remove taxable means they are losing their revenue. Government is losing revenue, and the activities specified in Schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without consideration. There are some services here. You told that in the course or furtherance of business. Only if it is in the course or furtherance of business only, it is treated as supply. You told. But point number B says whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. That means whether it is related to your business or not. I am not caring that. I'm whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, then uh, it comes under supply. Whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, it comes under supply. And the point number 3 says even it is without consideration, it is treated as supply. Okay. First point number A says the transaction should involve consideration and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. But there are some services, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, it should be treated as supply. What are the services? Only import of services. See, for provisos, this B and C is the provisos for A. For provisions, there is an exclusive list. That means if it is fall under these category only, then you need to pay, then it is treated as supply. Now, first you told it should be in the course or furtherance of business. But if you are importing some services, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, then it is treated as supply. Importing services. Importing services, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, it is treated as supply. You told that if it is for consideration, then only it will be treated as supply. But there are some transactions, there are 4 transactions, which even though it is made without consideration, then it is treated as supply. That is covered under Schedule 1. What are those services? The activities without consideration, it is deemed supply. Again, this deemed supply is different and another deemed supply also is there. Don't link both. It is activities without consideration. It is deemed to be supply. It is not deemed supply. Deemed to be supply. There is difference between deemed supply and deemed to be supply. We will look in further chapters. Activities that you remember the Schedule 1 for making notes, okay, in exam. Schedule 1 activities to be treated as supply even if it is made without consideration. What are those? There are 4 transactions involved, which even though without consideration, it will be treated as supply. First point is permanent transfer or disposal of business assets. Business assets. Some people will think this business assets has only fixed assets. Here they are not classified the meaning of asset like this asset only includes fixed asset. It is all business assets where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. On such assets, permanent transfer or disposal of business assets, not only fixed assets, current assets also, where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. Let us take one example like A. A is the registered person. He purchased one plant and machinery. Hmm? Okay. And he is trading in some groceries items. So he purchased groceries also. What A is doing means he purchased plant and machinery. Why the government introduced that provision means he purchased plant and machinery for 100 rupees. He paid GST 10 rupees. He paid GST 10 rupees. Okay. CGST 10 rupees. You think GST 10 rupees. Now, what is the cost for A 100 rupees? Right? This 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 20 rupees will be credited to his ITC ledger. Okay, ITC ledger, 10 rupees, 10 rupees, 20 rupees. What the cost for a 100 rupees? See, on business, this is a business asset, right? On this business asset, on which input tax credit has been availed. Input tax credit has been availed. If it is made without consideration, it will be treated as supply. Okay. Why this provision has came is there is a system concern B. What he will do? He will purchase 100 rupees. He will purchase for 100 rupees. He will enjoy the credit, this 20 rupees. He will sell for 20 rupees only. And he will not he will sell for 20 rupees without consideration. He will give to B for without consideration, A to B. You take it as free. You take it as free. Like that A will give to B. He is enjoying 20 rupees credit, but he is not paying GST because he is giving us free. As there is what definition of supply says, supply includes all forms of supply, sale, barter, transfer, exchange, lease, rental, for a consideration. Here there is no consideration, so I will not pay GST. Like that, A will argue. So for these loopholes, they introduced in Schedule 1 some provision like if you enjoy, that means you are availing input tax credit of 20 rupees here. If you are availing input tax credit of 20 rupees and if you supply these asset as without consideration, then you need to pay GST. As you are enjoying credit, so you pay GST. Like that, government says. That is the supply of business asset. One is the plant and machinery, and another is grocery. How these grocery is relevant means they will purchase 100 rupees, 10 rupees GST, 10 rupees GST. He will give it as a free sample. No consideration, free sample. Getting is giving us free. So, what definition of supply says it should be for consideration. Here there is no consideration, so no supply. Like that, you should not think. As as in Schedule 1, it is included that supply of business asset on which input tax credit has been availed, even though it is made for without consideration, it is treated as supply. Okay, that is this point number one. And point number two is supply of goods or services or both between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in section 25. Distinct persons means A is there. Here also A is there. AP, TS. Both are A only. What he is doing, he is transferring his assets to A. A is transferring to A only. What he will argue, Array, I am transferring to my branch only. Why I need to pay GST? Like that, like that A will argue. Then government says, no. What government says means if you have registration in one particular state and uh, another registration in another particular state, then you both are treated as distinct persons. distinct persons under GST, even though you both are same, but in the eyes of the GST, in the eyes of the GST, you both are distinct persons. So if you transfer some certain stock from AP to Telangana to your branch premises also, in the eyes of the GST, you are treated as distinct persons. So you pay GST, like that government will say. Distinct persons as specified in section 25 when made in the course of when they made in the course or furtherance of business, that means only for the purpose of business they need to pay GST, provided that gifts not exceeding 50,000 rupees in value in a financial year by an employer employee shall not be treated as supply of goods or services or both. Why this point is relevant while explaining in schedule 3, that is activity this is the schedule 1. When step into schedule 3 you will get into picture clear idea about this. And supply of goods agent to principal sub, I will explain you this example. A is there, B is there. What A will do, A will transfer goods to B, B will sell to C. He is the agent, he is the principal. Okay, when will be treated as agent means in the eyes of GST, that means not pure agent, agent falling under schedule 1. What are the agents falling under schedule 1 means A transfers stock to B. When A is transferring stock to B, A should give invoice to B, like some liquidator agent, like the it is not pure agent, it is like liquidator for some commission, like that. For falling principal agent in the category of schedule 1, A to B. A sell goods to B. Then A is giving invoice to B and B sells to C. Then B invoice to C. Invoice to C. This is the case 1. First I will say this. Okay. A is pure agent. A is there, B is there, C is there. He is the recipient, ultimate consumer. Okay. What A is doing means A is selling to B. What B will do? B will arrange one person for selling goods of A. What happened means A is directly billing to C. Understood? A is the principal, B is the agent, C is the recipient. What the duty of B? To identify customers. To identify customers. What A is doing? A is selling directly to A is selling to C. What the B is duty? To identify C. To identify C is the duty of B. So what A is doing? A is directly selling to C, and A is giving invoice to C. This is one type of scenario. Case 2. Case 2, what happened means A is the principal, B is the agent, C is the recipient. What A do means A will transfer some goods to B to sell to C. Here also, in case 1 also, for selling goods to C, A is giving invoice to C, but first A transfer goods to B and B will give to C. A will transfer goods to B and B will in turn supply the goods to C. This is the scenario 1. In scenario 2, A will transfer goods to B and B will transfer goods to C. Same scenario, but to classify these principal agent transaction in GST, means to come under the purview of GST, the invoice plays an important role. On whom the A is giving invoice is important. If A gives invoice directly to C, then it is a pure principal agent transaction. It will not come under GST. Okay. When A gives invoice on B and B in turns gives invoice to C, A will give invoice to B, and B in turn, 1 minute. If A gives invoice to B and B in turn gives invoice to C, then that transaction is comes under that transaction only will comes under GST. You see here, supply of goods. The principal to his agent, where agent undertakes to supply such goods on behalf of the principal. That means B will receive the goods. Agent undertakes to supply goods. Now B will sell the goods on behalf of A. B will sell the goods on behalf of A. B will sell the goods to C on behalf of A. B will receive the goods on behalf of A. Okay. B will sell the goods to C on behalf of A. Okay. B will receive goods from A on behalf of A. By an agent, by an agent to his principal, where agent undertakes to receive such goods on behalf of the principal. Okay. But what scenario will come under GST means scenario number 2. Okay, case number 2, where A give invoice on B and B in turn gives invoice on C. Only that type of supply will be coming here. Okay, we will have detail. Supply of goods by a principal to his agent without consideration, where the here without consideration. Why means A is giving invoice on B, but for supplying goods by A to B, B is not giving amount to A here. Okay. If A is directly selling to C, C will give directly amount to A. So the transaction is for consideration transaction only. Okay. C, for coming under GST, invoice plays a role. On whom you are giving invoice? C on C you are giving invoice. What C is doing? C is giving consideration to A. So there is consideration only. And why to fall under this transaction? Here the transaction is without consideration. A is giving invoice to B, then B should give money to A, but he is not giving. So there is no consideration. So it comes under supply. Understood. If A directly invoices to C, C will anyhow give consideration to A. There is a consideration and there is a supply. It is basically comes under point number A only. Okay. Then we should not see whether no complications are there here. Only for which there is no consideration and it will be treated as supply. Only that only will be consideration is that will be only will be considered in schedule 1. Here the transaction is happening between A and B, that is without consideration. For transferring goods by A to B, that means A is giving invoice to B. A is giving invoice to B means B in turn should give consideration to A, but there is no consideration here. Why? There is a principal agent relationship and there is no consideration. So it is treated as supply. Where the agent undertakes to supply such goods on behalf of the principal is considered supply. Similarly, supply of goods by an agent to his principal without consideration, where the agent undertakes to receive such goods on behalf of the principal is considered as supply. Points. Only supply of goods and not the supply of services. Only goods covered here and without consideration. Okay. In order to determine whether a particular principal agent will fall within the ambit of para 3 of schedule 1 as discussed above or not, the deciding factor is whether the invoice for for further supply of goods on behalf of the principal is being issued by an agent or not. Where the invoice for the further supply is being issued by agent in his name. That means for C who is being invoiced, B is being invoiced. Then any provision of goods from the principal to agent would fall under the para 3 above. Okay. Who is giving invoice to C is important. If A directly gives invoice to C, then it is with consideration only. Then it is treated as supply only. It is with consideration only. Then where B inverse is to C, then transaction between A and B is without consideration. When B use invoice to C, then transaction between A and B is without consideration. Then transaction between A and B is deemed to be supply. Okay. What are the transactions we covered here? Permanent transfer of business assets on which input tax credit has been availed. And the second thing is services between supply of goods or services between distinct persons and supply of goods, that is principal agent relationship. And fourth thing is import of services by a person from a related person, import of services, okay, from related person from any of his other establishments outside India in the course or furtherance of business. You see here, in meaning of supply, there is an import of services, import of services, import of services for a consideration. In supply definition, import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. Here, import of services from a related person, whether or only in the course or furtherance of business. Import of services. Here also import of services. There for consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. Here, without consideration, in the course or furtherance of business, then only it will be considered on, then it will be treated as supply. Okay, so we will stop here for schedule 1. Tomorrow we will go with schedule 2 and schedule 3, so that the definition of supply will be completed. And you go with all these definitions. If you have any doubts, let me know in the next session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.